Welcome to the Quantanix YouTube channel. This is the NextLayer podcast, episode 9.
And welcome. Yeah, it's great to be diving into this topic today.
Today, we're sort of stepping back from the usual headlines, the really sensational stuff about hacking. Instead, we want to take a deeper look into the world of hacking itself. We really try to understand the motivations, what drives these individuals.
You'll get some exploration drive, yeah.
Exactly. The reasons behind what they do and the ethical landscape, which can be pretty surprising.
Definitely. And we're drawing a lot from hacking, ethos, motivation, and evolution today. It's a great source for helping unpack this really complex world.
Right. Moving beyond just like good guys versus bad guys.
Trying to find the nuance. So our goal really is to give you a clearer picture of the different kinds of hackers, or maybe approaches is a better word.
Yeah, approaches.
What sparks their actions and all those tricky ethical questions that come up.
Okay, so let's maybe start with that core tension you mentioned.
Right, the pull between genuine intellectual curiosity on one side.
Just wanting to know how things work.
Exactly. And then the potential for, criminal exploitation on the other. Using that knowledge to cause harm or for profit.
It's such a spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's rarely just one thing. You've got people who are just fascinated by the challenge,
yes.
the puzzle of it all.
The tinkering aspect.
Yeah, seeing what systems can do just for the sake of knowing. And then, you absolutely have those who are looking for weaknesses to exploit.
Yeah.
For game or disruption or whatever.
And those hack classifications people use, white, gray, black, they're kind of useful shorthand, I guess.
To give you a starting point.
But they really don't capture the whole picture, do they? Reality is just much more fluid. It depends so much on the context.
So to really get a handle on this, maybe we should look back. Where did this whole culture even start?
Good idea. Let's go back to the beginning, or close to it. MIT, the 1950s, 1960s, that early computer scene.
Right, the pioneers.
That's really where this distinct hacker ethic was born. Stephen Levy wrote about it brilliantly in Hackers. Heroes of the computer revolution.
And what was that original ethic like? Was it different from how we might think of hacking now?
Oh, very much so. It was driven by this real sense of optimism about technology, a belief in openness, access. Levy laid out these foundational ideas.
Okay, what were they?
Well, first, this idea of unlimited access. Computers, information, it should all be open, freely available, no barriers.
Sounds radical even now.
It kind of was.
Okay.
Second, the hands-on imperative. You learn by actually playing with the technology, taking it apart, figuring it out yourself.
Makes sense.
Third, again, free information. That was key. Fourth, a real mistrust of authority, especially centralized control. They favored decentralized systems.
Interesting. Okay.
Fifth, judging people based on their actual hacking skills, their ability, not, degrees or job titles or bureaucracy.
Meritocracy, in a way.
Sort of, yeah. Sixth, and this one's maybe surprising, seeing computers as tools for creating art and beauty. Wow, okay.
And finally, this deep conviction that computers could genuinely change lives for the better, improve society.
That sounds incredibly idealistic, almost like a movement.
It had elements of that, for sure. And later thinkers, like Pekka Himinen in The Hacker Ethic, they framed it as this whole alternative philosophy about knowledge, about sharing, even about work itself, a counter to traditional ways of thinking.
So if it started with these really high ideals, how did we get to the point where hacking is so often associated with, crime and negativity?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, partly it's just the evolution of technology. The internet changed everything.
How so?
Well, suddenly information wasn't just on a few mainframes at MIT. It was everywhere. And it became incredibly valuable. Data became currency.
Right, commercialization.
Exactly. So that original sort of unified culture of enthusiasts, it started to splinter. New opportunities emerged. And unfortunately, that included new ways to exploit systems for personal gain for criminal purposes. And that's where the hats come back in, trying to make sense of the different paths people took.
Pretty much. There's still simplifications, like we said, but they help map out the different ethical stances that emerged from that splintering.
Okay, let's try and unpack those hats then, starting with white hats. These are generally seen as the good guys, right?
Yeah, generally. White hats are the ethical cybersecurity professionals. They work strictly within the law, follow clear ethical codes.
So they're hired by companies.
Often, yes. Their job is basically to think like a potential attacker, find the weaknesses in a system, but do it for the organization to help them patch those holes and improve security.
The key is permission then. They have authorization.
Absolutely key. It's proactive, it's permission-based. Their whole approach is built on principles like respecting privacy, causing no harm, being transparent about their methods and findings, constantly learning, contributing back to the security community, obeying the law, and, using their skills constructively.
Got it. That seems pretty straightforward. Now, flip side, black hats. The ones making the negative headlines.
Right. These are the individuals who knowingly break laws and violate ethical standards. Their intent is malicious.
Like what kind of things?
Oh, it could be anything from software piracy, stealing identities, credit card fraud, holding data for ransom, or just causing chaos disruption.
And they have the skills to do serious damage.
Often, yes. They can be very competent at getting into networks, bypassing security, creating malware that's malicious software, stealing data, destroying it, even engaging in cyber espionage for states or corporations. And yeah, sometimes there are links to organized crime. It's a serious threat.
A huge contrast to the white hats. But then there's the middle ground, the gray hats. This sounds like where things get murky.
They really do. Gray hats are tricky. They hack without explicit permission, so technically it might be illegal or at least unauthorized.
But their goal isn't necessarily bad.
Usually not. Often their main aim is actually to find security flaws and expose them, hoping it forces companies to fix things and improve overall security.
So they're kind of like vigilantes, taking it upon themselves to test security even if they weren't asked.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. They often genuinely believe they're acting for the greater good of cybersecurity, even if their methods are questionable.
Okay, I can see the dilemma.
It's that mix, isn't it? Unauthorized actions, maybe even illegal, but driven by a desire, or at least a claimed desire, to make things more secure. It really highlights the ethical ambiguity. Does the potential good outcome justify the means?
That's a tough one. So digging deeper then, what really motivates all these different types? It can't just be the hat they choose to wear.
No, absolutely not. Understanding the why is crucial. For many, especially those closer to that original hacker spirit, it really is just intellectual curiosity, the sheer challenge.
Like solving a complex puzzle.
Exactly. How does the system work? Can I make it do something else? Can I get past its defenses? It's that hands-on imperative again. And for some, maybe particularly in the gray hat space, there's a thrill in cracking a secure system, proving their skills.
That kind of status thing?
Can be, yeah. It taps into that basic human urge to explore, to test boundaries.
Okay, so curiosity is one driver. What else?
Well, money, obviously. Financial incentives are huge. For white hats, it's a legitimate, often well-paid career path in cybersecurity. Sure. For gray hats, sometimes it's about bug bounties, companies paying rewards if you find and report a vulnerability responsibly, or maybe hoping their skills get noticed and lead to a job offer.
And for black hats?
For black hats, it's often direct financial gain, stealing credit card numbers, bank logins, personal data they can sell on the dark web. Ransomware is a huge one now, identity theft, financial scams. The list goes on.
Right. And what about ideology? Does that original ethics still play a part?
It seems to, for some, that belief in free information, the mistrust of authority, decentralization, you still hear echoes of that.
So someone might hack a company they see as unethical, for instance.
Potentially, yeah. Or they might justify breaking in somewhere by claiming it serves the public interest, maybe by revealing poor security practices that put people at risk. Even if it's illegal, they frame it as ethically necessary.
Complex justifications.
Very. And then you have the psychological factors, the adrenaline rush of a successful hack, the feeling of power or control it might give someone. For some, cybercrime can even become addictive.
Really?
Yeah, the psychological rewards can be that strong. Plus, there's often a community aspect, sharing tricks, getting recognition from peers, a sense of belonging.
So it's a whole mix of driver's curiosity, money, ideology, psychology.
Exactly, which brings us back to the ethics. It's clearly not just about whether something is legal or illegal.
Right, you have to look deeper.
You have to consider the intent, the actual outcome or potential harm, whether there was consent, if the actions were proportionate. It's much more nuanced. And there have been attempts, to formalize ethical codes, especially for professional white hats.
What kind of principles do those codes include?
Things we touched on: respecting privacy, avoiding harm at all costs, being transparent, committing to keep learning, contributing positively, staying within the law, and always using skills for good.
And getting permission first.
Crucially, yes. Getting proper authorization before you even think about testing someone's systems, that's the ethical line. It stands in stark contrast to unauthorized access or anything destructive.
But the law doesn't always map perfectly onto these ethical ideas, does it? You mentioned India's IT Act, for example.
Exactly. Laws vary hugely across the world. Some laws might criminalize any unauthorized access, regardless of intent, while others might be vague or not specifically address scenarios like gray hat hacking.
Leaving this gap.
A significant gap sometimes between what's strictly legal and what some might argue is ethically justifiable, especially for those gray hats trying to improve security.
Are things changing there? Are laws catching up?
Slowly, perhaps. We are seeing some movement towards legal exemptions or safe harbor provisions in some places. These aim to protect security researchers who find vulnerabilities, but follow specific responsible disclosure rules, basically, telling the company privately first, giving them time to fix it before going public.
So acknowledging their potential value.
Right. It's an attempt to bridge that gap, recognizing that sometimes finding flaws, even without initial permission, can be beneficial if handled correctly.
Okay, so this whole dynamic, this constant push and pull between curiosity and crime, ethical hacking and attacks, how does it actually shape the cybersecurity world we all rely on?
It fundamentally shapes it. You get this sort of paradox, the security enhancement paradox. Ethical hackers are essential for finding the flaws before the bad guys do.
Using the same kinds of skills.
Exactly the same skills. Often, you need to think like an attacker to defend effectively. So weirdly, the existence of attackers, even malicious ones, forces defenders to constantly up their game.
It drives innovation and security.
It absolutely does. And gray hats complicate this further. Their unauthorized disclosures can sometimes force companies to fix things faster, but the way they do it raises all sorts of ethical and legal alarms.
Which is where things like bug bounties come in.
Precisely. Bug bounty programs and responsible disclosure policies are ways for organizations to try and manage this tension. They provide a legitimate channel for people to report vulnerabilities, harnessing that curiosity in a controlled, ethical way.
And we're seeing cybersecurity become much more of a profession now, right? Legitimate paths for people with these skills.
Definitely. The professionalization is key. We have university degrees, industry certifications, clear career paths in cybersecurity, ethical hacking, penetration testing.
So you don't have to operate in the gray areas anymore if you're driven by that technical curiosity.
Increasingly, no. There are established routes to explore vulnerabilities legally and ethically, and it's important this starts early. Our source mentioned kids developing white hat identities through tech education. Teaching the ethics alongside the skills is vital.
So wrapping this up then, it seems the hacking world is just incredibly multifaceted, far beyond simple labels.
Absolutely. It's a whole spectrum of motivations, from pure curiosity to pure criminality, with constantly shifting ethical lines, all evolving alongside the technology itself.
That original hacker ethic, the idealistic part, it's still there in some ways.
It echoes, yeah. But the landscape is so much more complex now, mainly because digital information is so valuable and vulnerable. The hats give us a starting point, but the reality on the ground is way more nuanced.
It really makes you ponder that basic human impulse, doesn't it? To explore, to understand systems, to push limits. In our digital age, that drive fuels amazing innovation, but it also creates significant risks. So maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is, how do we navigate this? What are the implications for us as individuals, for organizations, as this dynamic keeps changing?
It's something we all need to think about, definitely. A critical question for the future.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complex world of hacking.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to unpack.
Thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep dives on the NextLayer podcast at the Quantanix YouTube channel.